Islam, human families of the planet Earth. I'm your host, Aseer the Juketeers. You are now tuned in live to Super Heru Radio, along with my co-host, Selena, the Empress of 10,000 Years, Brother Saga Assad, the greater nation as a whole, all of you out there in the ether, as well as all of the ancestors coming in and converging to keep us on the track and to keep us in a divine light. Inshallah, anyone that lost any relatives or loved ones within the past, last time we spoke, condolences, but just know that they're in a better place. And inshallah, we will definitely be able to see them at a higher octave. Upon the fact that we are now in we are basically entered into the fifth world, we want to definitely give thanks and praise to the ancestors for unlocking that much more that we need to propel us and push us further into the divine bosom of the Most High. All of those who fall short of the grace, we ask forgiveness for them, for they know not what they do. And we also hope that they see the light. But we pray that our light does not dim, so that way they can use it as a beacon to do what they need to do. So with all the stuff that's going on, let's say typically or phenotypically in the planet, we want to also do the knowledge to the stuff that's happening outside. That comet that we talked about, Ison, that reached the perihelion at 3:33 at the exact moment that the guy Paul Walker hit the tree. The interesting thing about that, the knowledge to it, was that on a descending line, in a descending line fashion from you don't need nothing else. So it becomes a thing where the descending line between his crash site and another guy named Michael Stillings, who coincidentally happened to crash into a tree and burn up at almost the same exact speed that this guy's car crashed into the thing with. So you call that irony? That's like lightning striking in the same place twice. It happens, but it's so extremely rare that it seems more by design. But it seems more by design than by action. The serendipitous aspect of these so-called freak accidents wind up manifesting in that. The other interesting thing is that when it happened, the stellium, right, was at a certain height, and so as the comet Ison at that exact moment, 33.33 in astronomical number, once it hit that perihelion of the sun and started to slingshot around, it started going directly into the constellation of Hercules, which is the Heru. So the fact that the Heru again was taken out in that was very interesting. What was very interesting though is that being that he was usually in heroic movies like that, when you have a so-called black character, the so-called white character, the black character usually dies first. So it's very interesting that in this situation, in this so-called drama, because they're still coming out with the movie, whether the nigga died or not, the show must go on, just in case you didn't know. And the movie coming out in 2015, another 6. So it's interesting that the last movie he completed for them was Fast and Furious 6. F being A, B, C, D, E, F. Yeah, F being the 6th letter. So being that he did Fast and Furious 6, when you look at the acronym, which is FF6, that's 666. You know what I'm saying? Then they coming out with the movie in 2015. 1 and 5 is 6, right? 6, 7. Yeah, 1 and 5 is 6. So they already basically plotting how they gonna flip that. What'll be interesting to see if they try to flip some hologram shit like they did with Tupac to film the rest of the movie, because these people seem like they'll do anything, and again, have anybody sacrifice to do it. Another interesting thing about that was that when you look at that so-called Illuminati trading card deck, there's a card in it called Assassination, and in that it talks of that card is you basically use that card when you're trying to sacrifice somebody, right? You're trying to sacrifice somebody for a greater position in whatever role you're taking. Now, the interesting thing is that The Rock is playing Hercules, right? And he was the person in the movie with this guy. And he was one of the people who was always talking about this guy's light, how bright his light was, the light. So, I do the nod to that. But I'm also doing a nod to the symbolic aspect of the Herculean Heru being brought around the sun, which is a form of time travel. Anybody ever seen Superman or Star Trek, you would know that if you do a slingshot around the sun, theoretically, you should basically start to travel on the rate of a tachyon. Tachyons are bioluminescent, higher octave. Some people don't call them this, but they're radio waves that basically travel backwards in time. So anything that is dealing with any sort of time manipulation or anything like that is functioning on a tachyon basis. A tachyon, like I said, is a remnant energy that travels backwards in itself. So technically, if you were going to do some sort of time manipulation, you'd have to have some sort of tachyon technology to do so. The only person on record to have anything like that in history, you got it, babe, Nikola Tesla, right? Which is funny because he also came up with the weather machine and all that other stuff. The person to have free and clean energy on the planet in terms of lighting up, meaning that on Friday morning in 18 whatever, you went to bed by candlelight, and then the next day you went to a World's Fair, and then from that day on, Saturday day on, it was all about electricity. So each age has its own energy subscribed to it, meaning that we had the age of bronze, right? The Bronze Age, where bronzium and bdellium stones and stuff like that became the basis of commerce and what brought culture and industry forward. Then we had the the Bronze Age, then there's another one, the Classical Age, right, which is now dealing with the whole so-called Nova Roma, Nouveau Greek period. Yeah, I'm talking about like ancient. I'm going to move up to the industrial age. Then they had what they call the golden age, right? That was basically our height. That's where we were basically in total control in more ways than one, right? Then we went from what was called the ancient age, right, into the age of the moderns. That brought about a 600-year war. When we talk about when we talk about that war, we're talking about the war between the ancients and the moderns. We're talking about those people who started to use what we perceive as modern society as the precept to bring forth industry. So each age basically is signified by some sort of element to some degree. So the age of the 1800s or the early 1900s was the age of electricity. Towards the end of the 1800s into the 1900s, it was really more of the age of the electric or electricity, because from that came the industrial age, which then destroyed remnant of the ages prior that dealt on a balance between nature and man. So we are all the byproducts of a time in which it's more conducive to go to the supermarket to get your food than to go and hunt it. Therefore, convenience. There's an old maxim of law that says convenience can dull the edge or can dull the sword of husbandry, meaning that luxury, the more luxury that we have and the more that we have in certain situations, the less apt we are to actually dig deep within ourselves to bring up and out who and what we really are. So this society is all about creating different versions of yourself so that way you can use one of those versions to get on while you keeping the real you secret. Now, everybody does that to a degree, but when it gets to the point where you have what I would call legion in you, where you have so many different voices and so many different personas for so many different people that you meet, that your main personality does not have a dominant voice, then by all means and purposes you are possessed. You know what I'm saying? On a level of the fact that you cannot adequately take into account something for yourself without consulting all of the different personalities that have to give a general consensus whether or not you want to, go to the movies or yeah. Like perfect example. Yeah, that guy Tyler the Creator, perfect example of a program multiple. You know what I'm saying? So, because our community definitely don't believe in nothing like that, we're the ones who wind up emulating what we see. And in that, we start to emulate that which is the most unlike us to absorb ourselves into some aspect of society that we feel is excluding us. So as they say, it's the one sheep that strays away from the flock that the shepherd wants the most. So he'll leave the whole flock just to go get that one sheep. That is a form of what is called anode type of mentality. You know what I'm saying? That's going along with the motto that Dumas came out when he said one for all and all for one. You know what I'm saying? Meaning that the one is contingent upon keeping the whole in balance. Where we live in a society now that believes that the whole, the one, in balance. That's why when the pigs come to your crib, they'll come with like 5 or 6 people. You see what I'm saying? To gang up, they'll come with a gang. You see what I'm saying? Because they feel besieged by the individual. Because they are on the wrong side of the law. Yet they are fulfilling an aspect of the law. I know. I do. Waiting. And this is what happens. We well, not all of us, but until we come into a basic knowledge of what we want to understand ourselves to be, things get crazy. Some people don't wait to form a relationship with themselves before they open themselves up to other people. Some people will have, seeds and feel like the seed need to be around other people more than it need to be around them, because we have grown up in an externalized culture where everything that is supposed to be, where they take the monicum of, well, if you're not doing anything wrong, then you shouldn't mind me having a camera directly in your house. You know what I'm saying? So that takes the premise. That's like raping somebody and then giving them a choice of what dress to wear. You know what I'm saying? Like these people are creating situations. Like there's a young boy who got caught up in something, and they're trying to give this child 138 years. But there's laws in the United States that actually support and actually say that a minor cannot be separated from their from their parents. So if this child is a minor, how are you prosecuting him and giving him 130 years for a crime that would only constitute 6 months to a year minimum? Why would you do that? And why is it only these so-called black children, Negro children, that are put under this designation? Why are they the ones hit with the hard time like that? My queen went to school with this white boy who comes from a prominent Jewish family, and his father was a high judge and all of this. This is the nigga that introduced GHB to the East Coast. This nigga was banned from the school. Banned. He could not go back. This nigga was at the at the campus and all that every chance he got. Of course he's not gonna do no time. Of course he ain't gonna do no time. Because time like that is not for people like that. What they have done is turned you against yourself. And whenever you create a colorable society based upon colorable law, you have to dissociate the identity of the original constituents of the populace, to dissociate them from their identity, to claim that they are absent of themselves and not in their right mind. Therefore, every citizen, a.k.a. piece of human capital, because that's what they got your government, well, not my government, and not the government of the Autochton, but the United States government, not the American government. The United States government has declared that you are nothing but capital to it. Parcels of money in exchange. Now, what I notice is that regardless of who or what, in terms of the disparaging economic realities between so-called black America and white America, as if there's no other people in America, in the United States, but black and white people. But again, that's what they do to exclude everybody else. This creates a sickness in which now, so long as I'm benefiting from the oppression, I don't mind, or even though if I do mind or care that this is being wrong or there's an inadequate treatment with other people, so long as it's not happening to me, you dig? I'll put up with it. That's why it got to get to the point of Rodney King for white folk to really understand and see what was happening to so-called black people in America. But up until that point, white people still didn't believe it. They had been killing, brutalizing, raping, murdering, burning, hanging, lynching, all of that. Killing, firing, squatting, burying alive, cutting off of organs. They really turned this place into something really negative. You know what I'm saying? And still, they promote themselves as the pinnacles of virtue and right character. Every day you turn on the radio and the TV, every day one of their government officials that you allegedly elect is screwing you. And yet, the checks still come the first of every month. You know what I'm saying? Trains still run on time. And that's why nothing is going to stop. Because in order for things to truly end, they have to ultimately be destroyed. You understand? But when I say things, I'm talking about starting with the individual. You got to destroy the negative aspects and that legion that exists in your mind that detracts you and constantly makes you second guess yourself. Because those are the things that is inviting their cousins that live in, who see that weakness in you, to take advantage of you. Colorable law is a law of subtlety and impersonation. Thing that deals with the appearance of that which should be, but truly is not. Therefore, everybody or anybody enforcing colorable law, you understand, is part and parcel or party to the overall fraud that is being taken place on humanity as a whole, because that's really the law that's functioning everything as we know it on TV as well as in the so-called real world. Now, one of the significant things specifically about being an Asiatic or Moabite individual from this hemisphere is the fact that we did something historically that has never really been accessed or really realized in the international stratum of international law. I'm explaining right now, but essentially we are the American. We are the true American citizens because we are the only Americans that have dedicated themselves to a perpetual mission. And under the international laws that protect American missionaries, it gives us extraterritorial rights, and unalienable liberties that have to be protected by those powers that understand that all national governments in the world were set up by our national government in the world, which is why everybody in the world come here. When we let the Lord Proprietor set up businesses here, which were the Morisco and Morano and Nazarene Templars who were amalgamated to come over here and set up their little businesses and then bring with them their Slavs and their Freemasons under them to work and do what they needed to do. We didn't absolve them of the responsibility of being civil. We showed them how to run a government and how to be. But due to the basis of their government being tied up in a financial aspect, they had to rob Peter to pay Paul. So the first 150 years that people started coming over here, shit was okay. It was 150 years to 250 years after that things started getting crazy because the main way that they wanted to roll was by disfranchising all of the Moors in America and denationalizing them and making them aliens of their own land via contract, meaning taking possession of the land for them in trust to protect it from other Europeans and then forcing them people who gave you the trusteeship off the land as undesirables. When you look at American history outside of the emotional aspect of the racism and the confusing context of what the difference between the Articles of Confederation and the Continental Confederation, the Confederated Congress, and the Confederacy of the South that came up, we would have a greater grasp as to where we are in this country. But by no means are we from the continent over there of Africa. This is North Africa. And we can prove it, what happened in 1920, around 1928. This is from expose on our history as Moors here in America. To that end, in the pre-Depression years of the 1920s, Noble Drew Ali worked with Moorish Americans to purchase the first temple grounds in Chicago, Illinois, during May 1926, at the Moorish-owned Unity Temple Hall, located in that city at 3140 Indiana Avenue, site of the first Moorish National Convention. From October 15th to the 20th, 1928, the Moorish and American flags were proud reminders of the dual heritage of our people. This is where it gets interesting. The restoration of the Moorish flag to the descendants of Africa in America by the Noble Drew Ali was of special historic significance to the Moorish community and the world. Just tell them no. The United States, during a time when the government of Morocco was in a state of subjugation, from 1912 to 1955, due to knowledge, the Moorish Temple was founded in 1913. So the year after, the so-called Kingdom of Morocco and the Sultan was sucked into signing that deal in Madrid. And the actual treaties of Madrid and all that started coming in, and they started trying to bind them and sick the French on them. same way they sicked the French on in Washita, and binded them up in these legalese. So that meant that part of Africa was under total subjugation. The only part meaning that they could not raise the flag of their forefathers. And they couldn't do that until 1955, the year civil rights started, and could not raise the red flag. Therefore, if they could not raise it over there, but we raised it over here, that means then that Morocco is where we are. And therefore, the Moorish Science Temple was the vehicle, the Moorish Divine National Movement was the vehicle for the reassessment of the kingdom. Meaning that the kingdom, or the temple, is within. So on international law could not raise it over there, but we was able to raise it over here, then who's really a Moor? They are not Moors the way we are. They're Moroccans. Meaning if they came over here, they would be listed as African Americans. They can't list us as that. So Moors or Moroccans that were allegedly born free on one side of the world fell under the jurisdiction of the crooked French. But then on the other side, right, there are people who were born under subjugation but freed themselves and were able to raise the flag and hold down the continent or the kingdom or the nation or the empire of Morocco over here. Therefore, being that could not be raised on the African soil over there, was raised on the African soil here in northern Africa, which shown and proved then that there was a foreign jurisdiction that was already acquiesced to the temple in 1928. Because if it wasn't, then the federal government at that time would have had the mandate to come in there and shut that down and take them flags as evidence of a treasonous act of going to war against a country that they're in enmity with, which would be France and Morocco. That falls under the trademark agreement. Additionally, this action evoked memories of the unique role of the contributions of the Moorish Moroccan civilization to the development of the American system. Not the United States system, American, more synonymous with that. Because America is Americanos, and the Moroccanos, or Almaricanos, or Moricanos, is the Moor. The loca aptis, the loca proticitis absita poster restante, orbis proximus of the world. So in that, having a distinct identity that takes you outside of the slave myth that is created for us to meander in for the next 600 years is part and parcel of the agreement that was made between these so-called powers that agreed to put to sleep the original intent of the international character of the organization due to its Rotarian complexion and the fact that as a religious body politic and corporate, it has its own individual function due to the fact of how it was founded prior to it being founded. You see what I'm saying? Like it's bigger than liberation, what we're talking about. Black liberation can only come when so-called black people understand their position and come out of the emotional connection due to the years of bondage and slavery. If we really go to brass tacks, this whole idea of chattel slavery and all of that was imposed on us specifically for 85 years straight. And based on that 85 years, it was then exemplified for the next 85 years So that way the next 85 years after that, we would still be dealing with the remnants of what we believe we were going through based upon what actually happened. So when the Honorable Elijah Muhammad was talking about the 85%, he's talking about the 85% or 85 years between 1779 and 1865 that gives you, 85 years that give you the dumb, deaf, and blind so-called mass populace today. Of that, you have a 10 percentile that does not, that meaning 5% of that 10 percentile, let's say, knows what's really going on, and then the other 5% of that percentile are the ones that make it happen for those. You see what I'm saying? So within that 5, there's really maybe 3.5, and within that 3.5, there's maybe like 1. The saying goes that there's actually 7 people right now, or historically, who have always run it, and they all live on 7 different continents. Well, they all live on different continents, and at any given time, everybody can meet except the 7th one, because that 7th guy is the one that basically gives the charges to the other 6. So whether it be mythology or wishful thinking or some sort of, boogeyman created to make people stay in line, it doesn't matter. What matters is the fact that there's always something in humanity that is trying to tell man that he can't do something. God does not do that. God is the only thing in the universe that don't tell you that you can't do nothing. Even in the commandments, him telling you that these are what the commandments are ain't forcing you to follow them. Because if it was, we'd have been cleaned our shit up. But we don't. Because man has the choice. The free will is the illusion. There's no will other than love, truth, peace, freedom, justice, and equality. What is more balanced and harmonious than that? Like, what could you add on to that that's more defining or direct in nature? See? Exactly. The Queen said money, Maybachs, right? That's where modern people think, right? Bitches, right? Niggas, checks cut. See what I'm saying? Niggas would rather have checks cut than cut, see what I'm saying? To be the one cutting the check, the one who's really in control with the money. They'd rather be the player than the games master. You see what I'm saying? Like, look at the fact that they can make a movie based on a book about child rituals, mass child ritual sacrifice. You understand? And they allow children to read this after they just came out of the Twilight, after they just came out of the Hogwarts, right? The Harry Potter shit, right? After they've come out of all of this, they now put them in the context now where they're mocking jays. You know what I mean? They're out here, you know what I mean, fighting for survival, but then living off the trappings of the society, how to work the subtleties of the colorable institution, and how the institution uses the gladiatorial aspect of entertainment to maintain the balance of illusion. Every movie they come out with is about that now, if you notice. Every movie that come out now that's major is always dealing with how corrupt the world government is. Every movie, Batman, Iron Man, Transformers, G.I. Joe, Born Supremacy, every movie. The new Captain America movie that's coming out is next level. And this is a real interesting departure for Robert Redford, because he's actually playing Secret President. I talked about Secret President on the show one time before, and he basically is the one that runs, is like one of the seventh men. He's like the one that they all report to, all the clandestine services agencies. They deal with Secret President. So that would be like Nick Fury, but in this Captain America Winter Soldier thing, you're going to see him. But the thing about a departure is that Robert Redford, like Paul Newman, were like the George Clooney and Brad Pitt, like, of their day. They're like the humanitarian, like fighting for civil rights guys and all of that. So the fact that he's doing this is kind of akin to Denzel playing Roman in Training Day. You know what I'm saying? Or Lawrence Fishburne playing Nelson Crowe in Bad Company. See what I'm saying? There are always these transitions that these guys go through that represent the transition of or acquisition of power based upon moving up Masonic degree. You know what I'm saying? So like Mandela was dead in June. He been dead since last June. Why are they only telling people now? You dig what I'm saying? Why do that? Especially people, you understand, people worship that nigga. People have like altars to that nigga. And no doubt, the early Mandela, the Mandela that Idris Elba playing in the movie, up until him getting locked up, he was probably the dude. But I was down with him until he, you know, I was like, oh, word, he got out, word. Then a little while later, I was like, oh, word, he's going to be president. That's dope. Then I heard when he was getting brought up on charges for killing traitors. Dudes that informed on him that got him locked up. Then I was like, wait a minute, how is he letting that happen if he's the president? Then I heard, oh, he divorced her. I'm like, what? He divorced her, right? Then I was like, oh, you know, he married her. Then a little while later, oh, he married a white woman. It's like, damn. It's like, damn. But then due to knowledge, his prison number was 46664. So he had a square on one side, the 6 carbon, 6 carbon, 6 protons, 6 electrons, 6 neutrons of the carbon in the middle, and then on the other side, the 4, which is the other block. And then I think he was locked up for like 24 years, something like that. So the ritual, the fix was in. So it's ill that the timing of the death came out right when the movie came out. Him being dead last June. So these things, again, are all evidence of the veil of ISIS being lifted up. The fact that they played him at the end with the damn, with the interpreter. You know what I'm saying? With the interpreter that wasn't interpreting us. So now when you think of him, you know what I'm saying, his last days or his funeral, right, you don't think about the actual service. You think about the crazy interpreter who didn't really know what he was talking about. The fact that we could raise the flag over here in 1928, and we were the only original people doing that at that time, proves that not only we had the ancestral right to do it, but that we were not under any jurisdiction of the United States or the French or any of that, due to the fact that the Prophet had already received the mandate from Sultan Abdul Aziz, who had established the Sultanate of the Hejaz and the Najd in 1921 on the Prophet's birthday. And then on January 8th, and then in 1928, he meets the Prophet, who's born on the same day that he initiated the whole Sultanate and forced the British powers to capitulate. This is black history. You see what I'm saying? This is what's going on while they was going after all these other people. That's why they really didn't want the Prophet and Garvey really setting it off, because then Garvey would have maintained the army and the navy for the nation and have been over. But you know how it go. Or they say, so it go. But it still does not bear the fact or alter the fact that as original Moors, Americans born in the Orient, we occupy a specific peculiar aspect of jurisdiction in extraterritory. Extraterritory meaning we can go from one state to the next, unfettered, due to the fact that we are in possession of our true selves, meaning that we are not under the obligation of the trusteeship of the Sestoui Trust of 1666 A.D., spoken of by Elijah Muhammad, the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, and W.D. Fard in the English Sea lesson. That's what the C stood for, Sestuit, or C Trust. So all praise is due to Allah for the fact that we are in present mind enough to be able to take the time to go through and decipher what is ours, take the best part for ourselves and put the poor part back, for we do not care about the poor part. The poor part is for those who are perceived as poor. A beggar nation can never rise to its supremacy because it will always need another nation to vouch for it. So the aspect of our relationship, a quasi-relationship with the United States, is only due to a quasi-jurisdictional basis that they do not want to respect because of the fact that the Moorish Science Temple of America, which is the Moorish Divine and National Movement of 1913 and 1928, Home Office is the organ that sends us back or puts us back into the perspective of having a direct identity outside of the pseudo-identities that they have thrown on us. Behind the mirror. And thus that puts us in a state of flux because we have so many people in our own community that look down on those who want to be what they feel they are. And because we don't want to, so you'll have people in your family that'll accept people being gay and everything else, gay or marrying Caucasian people or anything that black people perceive as going outside the race. They rather you do anything. But then if you come talking about coming one day wearing a fez or a turban and talking about, you know what I mean, inshallah and alhamdulillah and shit like that, they'll believe that you possessed by the devil. They'll accept the devil culture more than your true culture. Because as a Moor, you are the inheritor of the Manasseh, the inheritor of tribe of Ben Ishmael, the inheritor of ancient Egypt, the inheritor of ancient Phoenicia, ancient Carthage, ancient Rome, because we deal in ancient culture. That's what we are. They deal in modern culture. And they have the right to do that if they want. But they don't have the right to say that because they want to deal with modern culture that they can't respect ancient culture, because the only reason why they can have a modern culture is because of the ancient culture. See what I'm saying? It's called that's called the quandary or conundrum. So by proving the international character of the temple itself by deed became the conveyance. The true aspect of Morocco in North Africa manifested itself when the old aspect was now when the pseudo aspect was now shut down due to the Sultan's at that time's capitulation. That's why the Saudi Arabian dude, the son of Hagar, had to go and set up the Hijaz and the Najd, which was a dualistic realm with two distinct and separate parts. And the separate part came over here by 1928 and handed that part over to the Moor, the Prophet Noble Jew Ali. And then by the action of deed of raising the flag, that was now the conveyance in deed, because it was witnessed by the congressional representatives that was at attendance, that not only had North Africa reasserted itself or the Moorish Empire had reasserted itself through the deed of conveyance by the Prophet actually manifesting and raising the flag at the time that the so-called Kingdom of Morocco was under jurisdiction, which was an act of autonomy due to the fact that they knew that he had it. And because of the British force, the British Kingdom, United Kingdom, having to capitulate to the Sultan, And the Sultan handing this aspect of the realm to one of the Sharif and army, a.k.a. the Prophet Noble Sharif Abdul Ali. The Prophet put it in a Torrens title system, which is the ancient form of land categorization and property custodialship through the vestment of ecclesiastical deeds and government, of which we have a distinct Rotarian complexion and character towards that. Oldest Islamic organization in the Americas. Because remember, he also, in the Ahmadiyya movement, was known as Mulavi Mubarak Ali, who was listed as the first to set up the first mosque out here in America. So again, it's the Moors. It wasn't a Muslim who did that, because the Ahmadiyya people was Muslims. Moors, not Muslims. Not disrespecting or trying to diss people that follow the religious aspect of Islam and not the ecclesiastical aspect. But because they consider themselves Orthodox, they believe that the veneration is the aspect of the religion, and it's not. That's the deed. The word has not been fully realized, because the Quran says one man is worth more to Allah than 1,000 prayers. So out of everybody in the thing, the more that stands up and knows that Allah, illallah, la ilaha illallah, illallah is our self-Lord and Master. You see what I'm saying? And that can be manifested out of Buddhism. I'm bringing the Islam out of Buddhism. I'm bringing the Islam out of Zoroastrianism. I'm bringing the Islam out of Manichaeism. I'm bringing the Buddhists out of Christianism. Whatever you bring it to me, I'm bringing the Islamism, the Islam, the Muslim, the Moabite, the Moorish aspect out of that. Then protects me from falling under the spell of it. Nobody else got that I know of. Everybody I know read jargon and get caught up and read even more. Will read that or whatever and don't read nothing else. All they read is a Circle 7. And that's great. If you want to eat apples, go ahead. If you want to eat apples for your whole life, go ahead and do that. If that's the only thing you ever want to eat on earth is apples, then great. That's what you want to do. It's not realistic to me. But by reading the Circle 7 Quran with books on research and things that I've read, with the Bible, with the Rig Veda, with the Ramayana, with these things, I'm able to get a deeper understanding of it. The same way I did when I got my 120, really not my 120, but my Supreme Math and Alphabet, which to me was the primary aspect. A lot of guys didn't see it that way. But again, that's, why you can't tell God how to be. Because we all see it how we want. But in that, all of this, I can show and prove more science even in that. In Nation of Gods on Earth, it don't matter. And I know it's something because it's the one thing that the white man don't really want to talk about, and it's surprised when I bring it up or he see me in my habit. When I'm really on it. You dig? Like all of that living in the dark and acting like what we are as a cult and all of that because you're scared that these people doing this and all of that is coming from the negative aspects that have infested the movement due to the misunderstandings of what should be used and what shouldn't. Coming from people that are not Moors. Coming from people that are not in a temple, don't know how to run a temple, meaning nothing. They don't know. They don't know. And now that they put themselves out there like that, ain't nobody that's a part of anything real going to trust them enough to bring them into nothing. So now there's a blacklist. Real talk. Would you? After this person come in and talk all of this stuff about the person you are basically patterning aspects of what you are existing from, because this ain't about worshiping the prophet. This ain't about none of that. This is about you being the prophet. He said, imitate me. That's the same when Jesus said what? The kingdom of none shall see the kingdom of God but through me. The successor of Islam, the true Islam of Muhammad, was Ali. It was supposed to be Ali. And the so-called sons of Hagar chose to go with Fatima. From his Arabic queen, but Ali was the Moor. So when Noble Jew Ali, or when Jew Ali, or Timothy Jew Ali, Timotheos Jew Ali, is now born to now fulfill this destiny that was already taken way back in 623, after they set up the Islamic State, which eventually devolved into the war between the Shia and the Sunni. This all culminated in the decline and the fall of the Moorish nation between 836 BC and 1196 BC, which translates to 1416 AD to 1776. Add them both up, that's 360. 360, 720. 500 plus years of domination and mental subjugation that's really only been going on since 1779. Total waste of time. Most of the stuff and most of these mental traps that have been abound since we've come into knowledge. Once the perspective of knowing that we needed to do something about our situation came into our mind state, our genetic material began to change from that point. We were no longer happy with where we were at. We needed something more, something better, start to uplift ourselves and gain more knowledge of what we think is right. Yet once the knowledge becomes a combat sport, it is no longer knowledge. It is not anything that you can use for the upliftment. It is only something you can use for the detractment. There's no difference between useless conflict and useful conflict. Conflict is conflict. So whatever you want to try to flip it into, it becomes something else. Whenever you try to, who controls everything controls nothing. He who controls everything should control nothing. If you own something, then that thing will own you. But controlling something doesn't mean that you have to own it. It just means that you know how to control. It just means you know how to operate within a certain parameter of construction, whether it be mental construction, whether it be the prefabrication of some idea or pre-thought that is engendered in your mind to make you do something, or you convince yourself that this has happened. This has happened. This now becomes the basis for what you perceive as an ability to move forward in your life. And because you actually care about where the world is going and what is going to happen to your children and so forth and so on, you actually want to have a community of people. You actually come into a community that you hope is genuine. Yeah, some more. Go to sleep. Get under the covers. Sorry about that. You want to have a community to trust enough to do that. But sometimes people don't realize that what they want sometimes overrides what they should be contributing. You know what I'm saying? And whenever it manifests, it always becomes a situation of control. You, in the end, will always be the one to control how you feel about whatever situation is going down. So you need to be aware of the conversation between the lower self and the higher self, which is a whole section in the Circle 7. The more you allow yourself to gain knowledge for the benefit of gaining knowledge, wanting to know the truth as how it makes sense to you, without the weight of people's expectation of it or defending it from this person because he don't believe that it's that, and so now he's talking shit about you with this, and all of that is European. That's the European Moors putting that into, or the European cultured Moors injecting that type of mentality into the lexicon of our conversation. Because I remember back in the Black Planet days, and I didn't even have a computer back then like that, but I remember going to homies' cribs and stuff who had access to that Black Planet, and like when MySpace and that type of shit first came out, it was rare you would see like a eel or a bait, because everybody was like kind of like Nuwapians or like other stuff, or like rosters and stuff like that. Now you can't walk down the street, you know what I'm saying? Somebody without somebody knowing or having a day or going on Facebook or seeing something like that, or even seeing Moors getting locked up on the news. They'll show Moors like that, but it's rare they show Moors in their real habit, just really running their communities, because there are Moors that are really functioning as that. And believe it or not, the so-called white man know the difference between who's playing and who's posturing. And regardless to that fact, if you put yourself in conflict with shit, then you're going to get conflict with shit. If they try to bring some sort of conflict with you, when you demonstrate in your proper manner, they're quickly going to switch that shit up. I'm telling you, man. I've seen it. It's happened to me. And I ain't even have my shit together like I getting it together now. I really thought I had it together back then, and I did for that time. But again, in opening myself and not limiting myself to building with other Moors from different perspectives and engaging their reality, being like, word, okay, let me look at it from the perspective of this brother and extrapolate it to the conclusion based upon what he's telling me it is. Instead of shutting him down because he may have come from one of the temples that may have been influenced by one of the informants, one of them branch temples that may be caught up in some of all of that. Because there's divine people in this movement, man. And they are being hoodwinked by the people that they're trusting to give them the right knowledge of what they are part of. But a lot of them don't got it because they was miseducated, because they grew up with it. Like, we just getting put on to having the eel and the bay and correcting our name and all of that. These people never had to do that. These Moors never had to do that. They was born with that. You know what I'm saying? So they never had to go to court and demonstrate and do this and that and all of that, because that was discouraged from them. But they grew up in a strictly religious type of aspect of this that was limited to that practice, where you still got ID and shit in your United States monicum, where you go through situations like naturalization. We're not supposed to do stuff like that. You as a Moor, you don't need to be naturalized. The only way you go through that is when you go through something like you coming from the West Indies or something like that, due to the crazy immigration shit. Once you go through that and you actually have your green card and all that, that all can be accessed due to your change of status, because that's still America. But it's not America. It's America in the de jure sense. Jamaica, Bahamas, that's the Americas. South Americas, all of that. All of that is America. Excuse me. Alamaricanos. So parts of that is ancient Carthage. Parts of that is ancient Egypt. Parts of that is ancient Rome. Parts of that is ancient High Brazil. Parts of that is, you see what I'm saying? It's like, it's a lot of different things going on. But specifically, we have a distinct character as Moors, or so-called Moorish Americans, due to the deeds of conveyance that were given to us that show and prove why we have a majesty. When you read the majesty and the subject in the Circle 7 Quran, it builds on that. What a ruler, or how a ruler is to be. These things are important when you look at the man as the ruler of his household, and the woman as the queen of her household, and things like that, and children as the princes and the heirs, instead of, the baby goats, which is the kids, you know what I mean, and the cattle, which is the children, you know what I mean, or the human capital, you know what I'm saying, or whatever they calling them this month, the child support check. I had a homie. That's what he called. He was cold. That's what he called his kids. Like, yeah, I'm gonna go pick up child support check tomorrow. Like, yo, it's like that. Like, dudes, like, it's real. It's real, man. I had something I wanted to read to everybody. Here we go. This is from Citizenship of the United States and Expatriation and Protection Abroad. There's another book that people should get called The Wars in Barbary by Chidsey, and another book called The Diplomatic Relations Between the United States and the Barbary Powers between 1782 and 1819, I believe, either 1819 or 1838. Definitely get those books, and you'll get a real good idea about the extraterritorial rights and why the Prophet was so cold in some of the language that he used to make sure he was a part of certain things. So it says that we are consecrated missionaries. And it also says on your temple card that I am a true American citizen. So as much as black people hate America, or think they hate America, what they really hate is the United States. If America is the commercial, if America is the video, then the United States is the commercial. If America is the slave, then the United States is the slave master. See what I'm saying? If America is the dog running free, America is the owner with the leash. If America is the dog running free in the field and all that, then the United States is the one holding the leash, ready to take them back and chain them in the yard. You know what I'm saying? Like that's what's going. That's the world we live in. That's the essence of what it is. So as much as you hate America, as much as you hear these people, these dudes rant about killing America and all this other crazy shit, they're not talking about that. They're talking about the United States. Everybody love America. Everybody want to live in America. I don't give a damn what color you are. I don't give a damn how much you hate white people. I don't give a damn how much you hate black people. I don't care if you hate gooks, spicks, Mexicans, kikes, whatever, faggots, whatever you want to, whatever you call it, whatever hatred, whatever petty hatred that you exist in and you siphon on and try to inflict on other people, whatever you think, it doesn't matter, man. You still want to be here. You still want to be able to go to the movies and go to the store and get chips and shit if you want. You still want to be able to not have a job and get unemployment. You can't do that nowhere else in the world, not like here. You can't do that. That's why a lot of people don't beef about the shit they be doing to you. So, you know, being able to not work for a year and shit like that is worth maybe getting your kid chipped up. You know what I'm saying? I'll trade that off. That's cool. That's cool to me. You know what I'm saying? You know, having this 10K job or whatever, that's going to mean that I'm not going to be with my family. But, you know, at least the kids will be able to go to college and all that. So what you're saying then, it's more important that they get an education than to be educated by you. Okay. White man like, okay, great. There's another whole generation I can fuck up. White kids, I'm going to fuck up. Black kids, I'm going to fuck up. Mexican kids, Asian kids, I'm screwing everybody up. Because the longer I do that, the more I do that, the more they'll fight over that, and the more I'll be in control. That's it, man. It's not rocket science. It's not deep. They don't hate us because we're black. They hate us because we're not really black. They hate us because they owe us so damn much. They hate us because the part of us that they think is black, the part of us that they know is black, the melanin part, the genetic part, that's the part they really love and covet. The statutory part is the part they use and beat up and manipulate. Because niggas let them do it. Niggas like who? Niggas like Thornton Jackson. Look him up. 33rd degree. He worked with Albert Pike to mess up the degrees of what became the Scottish Rite, which became the Skull and Bones, and then the Prince Hall, and which became the Boule. Them two. But people don't even believe that that the fact that all of these people happen to be part of the same organization that they don't even talk about, but they act like that they know that they are part of, but when asked of, they divert the subject, which is an obvious trait of concealment, which is the exact opposite of public office. You understand? The exact opposite of public office is concealment. So if you're in public office and you're concealing something, that means you have to be removed, right? Right. That's what it's supposed to mean. But that rarely happens. Look in the news to come. This next generation of senators that they're about to bring into the Congress and all that. The media and peep how many of them turn up dead. That's another ritual they'll talk about. The annual hazing of the senators to keep the bulwark of the rest of them in line. They make movies about this shit, write books about this shit, put the shit on TV, make TV shows about it, put it in cartoons. People don't believe it. So the only thing you can believe is something ancient, something that has not changed. Niggas can say what they want about the Moorish Science Temple of America, but they cannot say that the doctrine has changed in 100 years. You can't say that about no other movement. that's dealing with black folk. Black folk forget shit that happened 3 days ago, 3 hours ago. An interviewer asked me one time, he's like, I noticed, on your show you don't have a lot of guests and stuff. And he said, well, why is that? I said, well, because I don't function on a level of like, if somebody want to get on, let me know. But I don't function on a level, on a basis of like co-signing shit. And what people do is associate people based upon who they see them with. You associate Batman with Robin. You understand? Even if you don't see Batman and you see Robin, you want to see Batman, right? Even when you see Batman, what happens? You want to see Robin. You see what I'm saying? See what I'm saying? Association. You associate a mule with a cart. You understand? So you're going to associate me with this person, and then when this person turned out to be this and that, then you're going to start talking shit about me. So instead of me putting myself and my family in that position, you know what I'm saying? I'm going to protect my audience from even having to decipher all that bullshit. You think what I'm saying? That's just me. But I'm not adverse to it, just so everybody know, But somebody asked on the joint going on Mandela. He was a Zulu prince. You know what I'm saying? Allegedly the last descendant of Shaka. Shaka, who was descendant of Shango, the embodiment or the reincarnation of Shango, ruler of the volcano. I forget the name of the volcano that they said that the Zulus used to have control with. And they had like a city. There was like a secret city of the Zulus. I wrote about it in my book, The Dosco 418. And they said it was a secret city of Zulus, and they had, because they was a fire nation. So the thing about them, though, they was functioning on a tribal level. So they weren't really considered a nation until they started dealing with the British. And the British started doing all the crazy shit. And then he started making some of the white people like chiefs in the tribe and all that. And then he started executing certain black people because they was in cahoots with an element of the royal family that was trying to depose him. Some people say they was poisoning him with laudanum. Laudanum is a key ingredient in absinthe, which was a popular, and still is a popular beverage, hallucinogen. It's like smoking opium. People who did absinthe smoked opium as well. They call it chasing the dragon. This was created from the British East India Company that was created essentially to create an opium trade to be able to get into China and string the whole nation out on opium, which is why China closed down its doors for like 100 years or some shit. Kept everybody locked out until World War II. You know what I'm saying? When they could no longer protect the Forbidden City. So, they was flipping the laudanum and all that. So they said that in Shaka's blood, when they did the autopsy on it, which crazy they was doing autopsies back then, but this is the beginning of gross anatomy. They was doing the arcane experiments at Ingolstadt University in Bavaria and places like that. Coincidentally, that's where Mary Shelley said that Dr. Frankenstein created the monster in Ingolstadt. So the story goes, you know what I'm saying, the Zulu blood was of Martian ancestry, direct. So they wanted to harvest it. So the Zulus particularly were one of the last nations to be defiant, and eventually, like the Maroons, came into contract with them. The Zulus were like the Maroons of the continent they call Africa. And so they set up the quasi-state South Africa, see what I'm saying, through them. And then that's when all the bullshit started. So Mandela, who was a Mandala, He was a mandala. They turned him into a actual vehicle, portal, for them to change the country, but for them to also change the country where they wouldn't have to pay their penance for it due to the fact that they treated him good. So they created racially specific weapons to target specific black people, bleach bombs, and they used to skin black people, and they used to burn them. They used to sell them to the Belgians, and the Belgians would do experiments on them, and the Belgians would do experiments on them and shit. They were horrible. But when he took power, he made sure that the white folk didn't get payback and created what he called truth and reconciliation trials. See what I'm saying? Where people from all over the provinces would come and give their dissertation of what this horrible white devil government did to these people who were designated as black, as well as colored, or kafir. So this bullshit went on at the time that he wound up divorcing Winnie, and when he was in the joint, she found out the dudes who betrayed him and had them executed, or that's what the story. You know what I'm saying? That's what some of the so-called alternative media, as well as some of the reports from, what was that shit? I had one of these magazines, I had reports I was reading. One of these so-called, like what does it mean? Something like that. So when you see one instance of information that pops up and shit that you don't even really be expecting to find it in, that's kind of like the through line. So that's what I kind of peeped with that. Like they was using him literally as like a mandala, in the fact that the abuse that they was giving him over the years and things like that while he was locked D turned into almost a sacrament, like. And in him transcending that was somehow made into a beautiful supplication that they can now use to spirit the people into this new South Africa of everybody now moving forward and letting the sins of the past just go. But the wounds and all of that was still mad open. You know what I'm saying? And because hip-hop over here was in now such a free fall in terms of the degradation of the music, we was not producing anything that was culturally significant for them to latch on to and create movements of specific political change that had a nationalistic identity in it. You know what I'm saying? Because niggas over here was about getting paid, because that's what they learned about niggas at the 60s. Really, they learned it at the beginning when they set up the black universities and all that, and that constituency created a populace where they could determine who was going to be of considerable merit. Hold on, yeah. Okay, so the experience of us as a people being disjointed from a central idea of something to rally around, we then were now sought to join up with stuff that we emotionally felt connected to. So anything that made us feel emotional about the cause is what we were into, instead of anything that, if applied an intellectual view to it, along with a spiritual undertow, we could revolve and take more from what it is we were applying it to. So, like I say, with Mandela or the mandala, he became the vehicle for them to switch apartheid into a different reality. Now where they can have a black middle class that could be openly out, and they can have people from other lands and stuff come through or whatever. And now they're trying to turn it into almost like a cosmopolitan America. You know what I'm saying? But the poor are still mad poor. Only the political Zulus are the ones with the money. You see what I'm saying? Because they're the ones that work with the government, and they're the ones that's keeping things in the status quo going. And that's what they found. At the end, when these dudes went to the schools and all of that, the first round of so-called mulatto geniuses of the talented 10th, they gave all them dudes, I think, broke them off like $1,000, which at the time was a lot of money each, starting businesses. All of them went back and kept the money and decided to find jobs. And that's when they knew, I got these niggas. All I got to do is get them worked up to a certain point and then acquiesce certain things and keep the main things consistent, and then give them money. Yeah, because if Mandela would have said, get rid of all of the descendants of the Boers that you see in the country today, it'd be a wrap. It'd have been a wrap. If he came out on some hardcore, like, nah, we about to take the government type shit, it'd have been over. It'd have been a whole different history of him. They'd have painted him to be a dictator. You understand? He's trying to kill all the white people all of a sudden. White people up until that point, from the beginning of the outset of the country and even before that, had been there killing black people. You see what I'm saying? But that don't matter, because that's ancient history, you see? Ancient history represents your history. Modern history represents theirs. And you're in modern times, so guess which one you have to follow. So when people see his face, they associate him with who? Who you associate him with? Who? Gandhi, Martin Luther King, right? You don't associate him with Malcolm X, but he was more like Malcolm X than Malcolm X. He was radical in the beginning. Radical. He used to show up at the meetings garbed out. Everybody would be in suits. He would be the only one in straight up garb, chest out and all that. So what happened? Same thing that always happened. Progress. He evolved his ideas, right? Isn't that what they say? He saw beyond the color line, right? Isn't that what they say? They reading this in Vogue magazine, in the Phantom, as they drive past the projects. You understand? It's one society. It's one union society that you and I can never be a part of, because we are American citizens. And as American citizens, we cannot be citizens of the United States at the same time, because the United States is not America. The United States is of America. The guy that's in office is not the president of the United States of America. He is the administrative president of the office of the presidency of the United States of the United States of America. Again, actually, the executive administrative officer or office of the presidency of the United States of America. That's what he's the president of. Allegedly, your man, Pops, the dude in the seat now, allegedly his Pops was down with that. And he died in the same car crash. Coincidentally, that crashed into a tree. The line of demarcation when you look at Michael Stillings, and who died at 322. And there's a straight line between his tree or where he hit and this dude Paul Walker's tree, who went at 330. Yeah, they said that Obama Sr., or the person they say is his father, is the one who was down with that. Because he was CIA. Because he was Kenyan, but he had a British passport. You know what I'm saying? Like, what's up with that? Yeah, so they're administrating on behalf of the national government, of the American government. We are territorially different because we represent the remnants of the original Maghreb, the Moors that were able to raise the flag in 28 to show and prove that we were internationally sovereign and had our own nation through deed of conveyance, meaning that the actual deed of us raising that was the evidence of the fact that we were internationally recognizing ourselves as the original descendants and ancient forefathers of the Amurakan Empire that has reestablished itself under the training academy that we'll understand as the Moorally Temple of America, of which is comprised of Moorish American nationals, a.k.a. American nationals. So according to the actual document, Citizenship of the United States, Expatriation and Protection Abroad, published in 1906 by the Washington Government Printing Office. Praise be to the elder who shared this with me. It says, American nationals, the inhabitants of our insular possessions, the Philippines or Puerto Rico, appear not to be citizens in constitutional sense of the word. They are, however, subjects in an international sense and have perhaps not been inappropriately been called American nationals. It seems that they are within the scope of the treaties and acts of Congress passed and the furtherance thereof, and are not only entitled to full protection, but it would seem are subject to criminal procedure before American extraterritorial courts. Missionaries, though, dash. So whenever they put a dash, they leave you something else. A very great deal of diplomatic correspondence of the United States in regard to extraterritorial rights has arisen out of the denial of such rights to American missionaries in the Orient. In the Orient. The Orient is the Maghreb. Today, in the late 20s to late 40s, the Orient represented, they flipped it to mean the Far East, but prior to that, it meant the farthest west. So in this, they are talking about Morocco, or the Maghreb, which was constituted under the Americas, meaning again that the American nationals, those who were born in America, as Moors, Moabites, are again nationals of America, not the United States. Although many of the European nations may have special relations with certain ecclesiastical organizations and act as representative and protector of these organizations in the Orient, and even Great Britain and Germany are traditionally obligated to defend the great faiths which are so closely connected with their national history, meaning that all of the national governments of these two great world powers that were forced into capitulation under the Sultan on January 8th, 1921, culminating in the deed of conveyance on this side of the realm handed over to Sharif Abdul Ali, also known as Prophet Noble Jali, in 1928. 8 and 8 is 16. That's knowledge equality, meaning that he did it on January 8th and he passed it on to somebody who was born on that day, who was the only American born, because he was not born in the United States, Timothy Drew, or Drew Ali. He was born in Sampson, North Carolina, on the reservation. Therefore, he was born outside the United States from the jump. Therefore, he was the only one that could inherit that because they were the only one that were us. We were only ones that were truly and functionally Islamic still. The Moors, the Muslims, who have an and had ecclesiastical organization that we refer to as the Moorish Science Temple of America, which has consecrated missionaries that are protected by not only Great Britain and Germany, but shows the international connection of the national governments of both of those countries being founded by Moors, who may have been of European blood but owe us due obligation and were forced again into subjugation of the Hajjaz and the Najd, which also recognizes the Moorish Science Temple of America and the Ilsen Beys as an aristocracy. The same way you have a prince or princess, this is above that because this is coming from Allah. You are a Bey or an Il. And within that was put in the context of something called the Orient. And only those who were so-called Grandmaster Masons who went through the Grand Orient were let in on the true secret of what they were doing and what they needed to conceal, which is why they don't want to necessarily recognize American missionaries. But this is also why the Prophet was all wise and using that term. The United States may be said to have a really distinctive policy, leaving something out, that of protecting American missionaries to the same degree as other American citizens. That's why on your temple cards it says, I am a true American citizen, because that is a code for being an American missionary or an American national. As noted, American missionaries constitute a peculiar degree, a distinctive American community, enjoying extraterritorial rights in which American citizenship may be handed down from father to son without restriction as to those whose fathers have never resided in the United States. Therefore, the domicile of origin is key. Having the father was key, because the father represents the domicile of origin. The mother represents the domicile of habitation. Therefore, this is in their court proving that the nationality is passed through the father, which is why they want the father out, because he's the one that's probably going to give the child a nationality that the mother is going to have to explain to the other women in her life that she really don't want to be around. It follows naturally from this ruling that the issuance of passports to missionaries in extraterritorial countries whose residence there was continuous and practically permanent, and who could not allege any definite intention of returning to and residing in the United States. And it has been directed. So, again, I'm showing and proving. These people are trying to get you into something they call it double nationality, which is a form of naturalization. Naturalization takes you out of your original state and makes you swear allegiance to the inferior state. We Moors nationalized, or at least that's how I was taught. You know what I'm saying? I'm only going by what I have been doing the knowledge through for the past years. And in what I've been reading and understanding, it said American national. It didn't say American natural. So Moors really got to do the knowledge to that, because that can get you jammed up, because that's when you start dealing with dualistic rights of what state is claiming jurisdiction based upon what open instrument they have on you that has not been properly secured. So it's better to go within this said government, which means the Moorish Science Temple of America, which itself is an ecclesiastical organization or an ecclesiastical government, according to the Department of Treasury. So, again, I know what niggas be saying, and I know what you be seeing on YouTube, and I know what you be paying money to go invest in and all that, but I'm telling you, in my understanding, most of that stuff is not even real. Because that has nothing to do with what I'm talking about. You ain't once hear me talk about UCC, sovereignty, chargeback, redemption. You know what I'm saying? You don't hear me talk about none of that stuff. Kill Whitey, none of that. Like, none of that has anything to do with what I'm talking about. I'm talking about setting yourself up to be what you are based upon what the ancient forefathers left you today, and then carrying that into the future somehow to erect a society or a world that is totally the opposite of this, whatever we or you choose that to be. The only vehicle for you to do that, other than leaving here, buying your own island, and hopefully, setting something up where they don't try to move in on you, where you don't have something that verifies that you have the right to do what you're doing, because you are in a society where people are posing as other people all the time. So there's the you at work, the you at home, the you with your kids, the you with your other kids, the you with your mistress, the you with your other mistress, the you with your mother, the you with your brother, the you with your friend. You got all these different yous with all these different people. And in some instances, you got to do that because these people sometimes won't let you be yourself. But anybody that won't let you be yourself is not somebody you need to be around. Real talk. It's that simple. I don't know. Maybe it's getting older or whatever it is, but I'm to the point where it's like, if it's not going to work, then I'm not invested in it working. I'm invested in getting the work done. So whatever vehicle that will manifest that does not compromise love, truth, peace, freedom, justice, and equality, I'm down with. So you could be, the this of that and the this of that and all of that. You don't have to like, morals or whatever. But most people with money respect order. And one thing about evil is that it's organized. Good just come together to get the shit done and then move on. What the Prophet did was solidify a national identity for us that was outside of the crippled Muslim thing that was under the jurisdiction of the French. And during that period between 1912 and 1955 that they were using to alter the doctrine and create even a further mist between what became the Muslim Brotherhood, this became a part of the 10 years of secret diplomacy, the legacy of that, in which the French, the British, and to denationalize and depopulate the Moorish nation. This is a real history of what happened with the Alamanicanos. People read the Treaty of Peace and Friendship wrong all the time. It says this is between the Sultan and the Alamanicanos, meaning it was between us and the Sultan, not the Sultan over us. He didn't have jurisdiction over us. We were bled LC, but he was bled L. He was a slave. He was a slave of Allah in the sense that he was a Muslim. We were Muslims outside the Sultan's districts, the land of the lawless. Our daughters was what their princes, that's why they could be kings, because we would marry them to them. They would come over here. That's where all the stories of Romeo going into the hardships and the labors of the crazy distant land, that's them coming here. So when you see the genies and all of that was satellite kingdoms of what was popping off over here that they'll never tell you about. They'll never reveal that. It'll be way later. But our great-grandchildren is going through the remnants with feathers on under their space helmets and shit, digging up history that we was like, wow, the Moor was right. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's the future I see. That's where I see it going. This has nothing to do with what will happen or may not happen. This is the future that I'm promoting for myself and my progeny and my whoever choose to be that. But I'm not claiming them. Like when I say my people, I'm not trying to claim them as like I own these people. Like that's the whole thing. Love is love regardless. God didn't create the ocean and say, okay, these people on this part of the ocean are going to pay this much and these people on this. No, he said, everybody take the ocean. That's why God is so dope, because it exists at a point of such 0 point that the white noise of it is so loud we can't hear it. We can't hear the voice of creation because we are the living manifestation of it as if it would be arm, leg, arm, head, out of the 66 trillion triple year stage darkness. There never was a time where man was not, because if there was, there would be a time where Allah was not, and there could never be a time where Allah was not. It could never. It could never be. You could never know nobody before your mother. How do you know that your father is your father? Because your mama told you. She could be lying. You dig? And a lot of times she do be. Keep it real. Let's really keep it real. A lot of times she do be, based upon the situation that niggas done put her in. Niggas and bitches done put her in. She's become a betrayer to her own children. So we get to a point where she got to get out of the sex ritual, get out of the whole relationship with the chemicals and all of that, and decide that she is going to build up the nation. Once she really decide that and start to apply that mentality to a form of embryonic sustainability, you understand? The whole thing will change. If I said this way long time ago, every black woman that got a perm to cut the perm out tonight, in the sound of my voice, would cut the perm out there tonight, the vibration of the planet will raise. You would give yourself an extra 60 years of life, because the perm mixed with the foundation, mixed with the lipstick, mixed with the injection, the silicone injection, mixed with the plastic surgery, that is what's killing you. It's all working together to destroy you. And while that's happening, the white woman is having sex with your man, your son, your daughter. You understand? Is that real? Is that real? Brother, whoever. Why? Because she's been dogged out. She's been turned into a portal. She's been turned into a mandala, the white woman, been turned into something for people to aspire to, and she don't even know who the fuck she is. She running away from the white man. But at the same time, she's not letting them go. You see what I'm saying? You got to get out of that. All of that is Babylonian. All of that is Roman. That's why we gave the ancient Romans their own little rock. Like, y'all can do y'all, but y'all can't let that spill to everybody else, because y'all bugging. Hannibal was a Carthaginian. The Carthaginians from that little kingdom of Morocco that didn't have enough power to stop the French from doing that, whereas we was born under 150 years at that time of subjugation, and we was able to raise the flag with no problem. What does that say? What does that really say? Who's really in control? It's what you say it is. You are what you say you are. You can't tell me that I'm not what I am. I am that I am. And if you want to try, you're going to fail, because I'm not going to engage you in a conflictual manner. I'm going to deal with you in a manner of jurisprudence, and that is prove the jurisdiction over God. Prove the jurisdiction over God, because you can't do it. No man can prove jurisdiction over God, and I am that I am. La ilaha illallah illallah. That's spoken in Psalms 82, verse 6 to 8. The eel and the bay. You already know. You already know. So just adjourn this and let me sit in the back and let the whole proceeding go through, and then let me just leave. Don't try to exact some type of tribute from me, because now you know that I'm a real Moor, where I could give you a number and you run that in your little cop database, and it come back registered Moor. Really? Really. So again, I am what my Father created, because that's the domicile of origin that I inhabit from, that has consecrated me and appointed me to be a missionary for him, to uplift the form of humanity that y'all niggas done fucked up. This shit was fucked up before I got here, man. None of this shit is my fault. That's how I'm at the level of it like that now. Fuck it. You know what I'm saying? Like, whatever. I'm done. None of it is my fault. None of it is your fault. All of the shit that done happened to you has been happening to you because it's been happening to you. The part that is your fault is the part that doesn't allow you to come out of the Babylonian mystic brotherhood, whether it be Christian, whether it be Muslim, whether it be whatever. I can give respect to all of them people. I got a picture with me and another more in the book ending a whole like 5 Hindus that we met in Texas building one day. We all turbaned out. But I'm a Moor and he's a Hindu. You see what I'm saying? I'm not trying to control his nationality. He's not trying to control mine. But we are both in a situation. But ancestrally, there's something that eventually we all going to have to work out. But it's going to start with those people who descend from the people that put Muhammad in power. The people that put Muhammad in power was the Bays and the Eels. It's shown and proved in the Quran. It's shown and proved in the Surah Al. It's shown and proved in all of it. So if that's at the end of my name, leave me alone. That's all. Leave me alone and let me build a community. Let us build a community that we need to, and let you destroy the people that you want to. Any name you have, your free national name is your name, the name that you're born with. If your name is Willie Smith, that means that you are Willie from the tribe of Smiths. Then it's up to you to choose your clan, whether it be the Eel or the Bay. The Smiths is in the Cherokee, the Abenaki, the Wabanaki, the Micmac, the Muskogee. These is all native names. When they say slave names, these were names that was adopted by the European slaves and then were given back to the nationals who were denationalized due to them absorbing themselves into the fictitious, colorable United States system as blacks. So your Moorish lineage is whoever you are. You want to check it out? Type in whatever your name is now and check any of the Native American American Indian roles, DAWES roles on it, and check it out. And any tribe or by region you are in, that's the nation that you're from. That's a Moorish nation. Because when the Moors were denationalized and the Eels and Bays could no longer use those terms, their tribal names became their national names. So the Smiths, who were Cherokee, became who were of the clan of the Eels. Instead of them being Eels now, they were Cherokees. You see what I'm saying? And therefore, that's that. So in that, an American Indian is a Moor, a black man, the one you see on the Buffalo Nickel and all that. That's the Moor, the war chief, who is Tamanin, also Black Hawk. But we'll get into them next time. But essentially, that's the science. So anybody wants to build with us on establishing identity and things like that can do so, or reestablishing their repatriation can hit us at houseofl@hotmail.com. You could also hit us up check out www.darkskull418.com for the world's most dangerous comic book novel. You could also check out www.tears.com, also www.sagasod.com, and www.cookingmorewithless.com. That was really it. Yeah, that's pretty much it. So blessings to you, blessings to the Prophet, blessings to everybody, and essentially let's build, man.